So finally, we're going to look at the House races in 2018. We're going to look at the retiring incumbents since you're likely to see a more likelihood of a change in the seat because you lose an incumbent advantage and you lose the ability to play to the center and tout what you've done for the district. There are 36 Republicans retiring and only 16 Democrats retiring. So right off the bat, you can see the Republicans are losing a lot more seats to retirees. But interestingly enough, if you look at the seats that are held by Democrats or Republicans compared to the districts that went Trump or Clinton, it's actually only a 5-to-4 ratio. Only 5 Republicans are sitting in districts that went Clinton, and only 4 Democrats are sitting in districts that went Trump. That's not a huge margin. This is 52 races. There are 435 seats total. So it's a bit more than a tenth of the races. So we could kind of extrapolate this, multiply everything by 10, and you would see a 50-40 differential across the entire nation. There are some interesting races here. We have Ted Poe in Texas retiring. Early on during the healthcare debate, he actually quit the Freedom Caucus over their inflexible position on Obamacare repeal. I suspect he might be retiring because he's afraid of how that'll look to a redder district in Texas where he comes from. Could hurt his chances for re-election, and it might be better that a different Republican comes up. Might galvanize the base better, get people out to vote instead of losing that seat to a Democrat who can drive turnout better. Raul Labrador is retiring out of Idaho. He's actually a Freedom Caucus member. He's retiring to run for governor of Idaho. That'll put the Freedom Caucus down one right there. There's no guarantee whoever will get his seat will caucus with the Freedom Caucus, which I find a shame, but it's a Trump district in a Trump state. It likely will still be a Republican. It's just a shame to lose a conservative Republican like that. Also sad to see Trey Gowdy is retiring. He wants to get back into the criminal justice system. He was a prosecutor for many years, and I love seeing him use all of his prosecutorial experience that he gained while working for the government against government officials. I thought there was a great poetic justice there, but he'll be retiring. I'm sad to see him go. Now, Gutierrez is also retiring. He is one of the far left Democrats on immigration. Now, neither Trey Gowdy or Gutierrez are in contested districts, so it's not likely those will flop. The Democrats will lose someone who's hard left on immigration there. That may have repercussions for the DACA debate. Beto O'Rourke is leaving his seat in Texas, which is a Democrat seat in a Clinton district, to challenge Ted Cruz for the Senate. I think this is a bad move on O'Rourke's part because it's very unlikely he wins a Senate race in Texas, and it puts a Democrat seat without an incumbent in it, which, in my opinion, makes it a little more vulnerable for a Republican to take. But the district is blue, so it's likely another Democrat will succeed him. It just seems like a waste for someone who could tout incumbent credibility to make what I see as a foolish bid for the Senate. The contested seats aren't that big of a factor given how many seats are going to be up for these retired incumbents. The Democrats only stand to pick up one seat if 4 go Republican and 5 go Democrat. I expected, with the way they were touting the blue wave, that there would be a bigger discrepancy in that ratio. Also worth talking about is Dan Lipinski in Illinois. He isn't retiring, but he's actually being pushed out by the Democrats. They don't like that he's a pro-life candidate. Tom Perez was very clear that if you weren't pro-choice, you didn't belong in the party, and it seems they're backing his primary challenger. This doesn't necessarily bode well since This kind of extreme litmus test, this kind of purity test could alienate centrists and drive turnout for a more moderate Republican. So they're actually putting a seat that would be pretty safe otherwise. They're putting it in a little bit of jeopardy. Illinois is heavily Democratic. It's not likely that a Democrat will lose a race, but when you push extremes like that, you're going to get some kind of rubber banding. On a side note, too, Dianne Feinstein in the Senate is actually feeling the same kind of heat for not being far left enough, as the Democratic Party in California seems to be backing her primary challenger. Again, it's not likely that it'll hurt the Democrats in a heavily Democratic state like California. It does welcome some rubber banding from the center. In related news, a CNN poll, CNN, take it for what it's worth, shows that the Democrats are swinging back into the lead, quite heavily actually, on the generic ballot. This is in contrast to other polls from other polling places with what I would consider better methodology that show the Republicans ahead or at least very close. This would be something worth keeping an eye on, though. That's the one thing in all this that seems to be the worst for Republicans. Going back to that 5-4 ratio, assuming this is roughly a tenth of all the races, if we extrapolate this for the entire nation, we could just rough math, multiply everything by 10, and you'd see a 50-40 ratio nationwide, with 50 Republican seats being in Clinton districts and 40 Democrat seats in Trump districts. Now, I don't know if that's exactly true. That's just kind of a rough guess. But it's not that bad for Republicans. They hold a 238 to 193 advantage, which is a 45 seat margin. If all 50 Republican seats go Democrat and all 40 Democrat seats go Republican, that means the GOP only loses 10 seats. So far from a blue wave, it's not even the GOP losing the House. Their margin falls from 45 to 35. They still control the House. This math, just like in the Senate, the math is better in the Senate because they stand to pick up 10 seats if all of them flip. But losing 10 seats does not lose them the House. And I wouldn't call that a blue wave that everyone's hoping for. Everyone seems to be very down on the idea that the Republicans will hold the House. I don't see the math for that here. I think the blue wave is much overhyped, and the Republicans are actually at the most risk in the gubernatorial races, which aren't going to have as strong a national impact anyway. As far as the House is concerned, everything flips, they lose 10 seats. The Senate's concerned, everything flips, they gain 10 seats and actually gain a supermajority. That is not a blue wave, and that is something Republicans should be happy about, in fact. As long as turnout doesn't screw the Republicans, I don't see any blue wave at all. But that's just my analysis. We'll have to see how things ramp up towards November. It is only February, and nothing's written in stone. But as it stands, the math in the Senate and the House are fine for Republicans. Gubernatorial races are a risk, but don't carry the same kind of implications for Trump's agenda and for the national Republican agenda. When people talk about a blue wave, I'm very skeptical a blue wave will materialize. Maybe a blue ripple, but 10 seats in the House is not going to lose them the majority. Something wild is going to have to happen between now and then for the Democrats to make the gains they think they're going to make. And it's much more likely that they're going to take a beating in this general election. And don't be surprised if they don't blame Russia for the beating they are going to take. But we'll have to see how things turn out. Until then, we are the Republic's walls, and they will have to come and take it.